This is our second MADE Online web series. We are so excited to have all of you here. Today, we have the great pleasure of having a couple of MADE alumni joining us to talk about their experiences, answer your questions, and we'll get to hear where they are now. It hasn't been so much time for some of them, but I think, they're not so far away from where all of you are sitting. So we're so excited for this conversation, and we hope that it's going to be as interactive as possible, and we welcome all of your participation. So with that, I am going to pass it over to your favorite person at the AEF, Sarah Ackerman.
Well, thank you for that introduction. I appreciate it. So thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. And I'm very excited to be moderating this MADE alumni panel. And I'm so grateful to Jay, Kevin, and Jordan for joining us tonight. Your willingness to share your professional experiences is very invaluable to all of the MADE participants. So thank you very much. And to everybody on this call throughout the hour, feel free to put questions in the chat box or raise your hand, your virtual hand, and I will call on you to unmute yourself if you prefer to ask your question live. So I really hope that this will be an open and honest conversation, and I know that Jay, Kevin, and Jordan are excited to share their experiences with you. So with that, let's get started. Kevin, do you want to kick it off and share a little bit about yourself?
For sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Kim, and I was part of the MADE class of 2018. To tell you a bit about myself, I went to NYU and studied a major called Media, Culture, and Communication with a minor in Architecture and Urban Design. I graduated in 2019 and joined MasterCard shortly after, which is exciting because I did MasterCard as my internship as part of the MADE program. I've been with MasterCard for a little under 3 years. For the first 2 years, I was part of a team called Brand Strategy, Experience, and Design, which is under the marketing team. And I own something called the Sonic Branding for MasterCard. Currently, my official title is Senior Analyst in Product Development. But high level, I'm a product manager looking after an AI drive-through solution with recommendations, known user recognition, and voice AI capabilities. And I also oversee marketing and communications for all of our products on our team.
Great, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I'm so happy to hear, that MasterCard worked out in the long run. You loved your time there, and you are still there. Jordan, would you like to go next and introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Jordan. I was a part of the MADE program last summer, so with the 2021 class, and it was the best experience. I was an intern at NBC Universal in ad sales, and I recently graduated last month from ASU in digital marketing. But yes, I loved NBC Universal and MADE. I made a lot of great connections, and I think through that, I was able to do 2 other internships at NBC in ad sales, but in different areas of ad sales. And I was able to really see what a big media company does and how it's on the other side of advertising. But my MADE mentor actually was in strategy advertising, and I picked that because I always had an interest in strategy and creative advertising. And she really has become one of my good friends, and I still talk with her. And, once I was deciding what I wanted to do post-grad, I thought of doing media and NBC, but I still really wanted to learn creative strategy. So I was able to learn a lot through her, and I never had an internship in it. So that led me to where I am now. I'm an intern, comm strategy intern at Droga 5. So I'm still an intern and learning a lot this summer, but it's exciting to be now graduated, next step, but I'm still an intern like all of you.
Well, thank you so much. And it's great to see all of the MADE resources that you were able to take advantage of to get to where you are now. And Jay, I see that you are on the call now as well. If you want to come off of mute and give a brief introduction.
Great. Oh. Hi, everyone. A bit late. I was having some technical difficulties.
Jay, you might be having
after like
some
3
internet
years doing
issues.
this, working from home, doing the thing, we'd figure it out. But clearly, I can't get it together. Cutting out? Am I cutting out?
Yes, we
Can you
can
hear
hear you a bit better now. So
Okay,
go ahead.
I'm gonna go off the video really quick to see if that
Sure.
helps, because sometimes it helps. Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm Jay Tristovitz. I was a MADE intern, I believe summer of 2019, but Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong. And I interned at DDB as an account manager, or account executive intern. So within the account management department, it was truly like one of the best internship experiences. I'm like Jordan mentioned, I'm still super close with my MADE mentor. He's actually one of the big reasons I was able to negotiate in my first offer, like out of college, so well. So definitely mentors. And I currently am the associate director of social strategy. So I co-lead the digital discipline with another associate director within the agency. So I work across all the businesses and the new business that comes through.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jay. It may be better to keep your camera off just because your connection seemed to be stronger that way. So thank you. So again, we've had some people join. Any questions that you have throughout this panel, feel free to come off of mute and ask them or put them in the chat. But I will just get started with our first question. So first question is for all of you. How do you think that your time in MADE helped you with your career and helped you to get to where you are? You guys addressed this a little bit, but any additional details you'd like to share? Kevin, we can start with you.
For sure. I think for me, it was the network that was really helpful for me. I think it was one of my first experiences being part of a cohort outside of kind of being part of a company where we were all like-minded in that we were interested in marketing and communications, but we were all working for different companies doing different roles within the marketing and communication umbrella. So I think it was great to kind of have that network and have that kind of community that I could bounce ideas off or kind of learn more about different sectors within marketing. So I really like that aspect of the MADE program for me.
Great. Jordan?
Yeah, I have to go off of that. I'm sorry to copy, but I just feel like for me, because I went to Arizona State and I've always lived in Arizona, but I think it really opened my eyes to at first an internship based in New York and a global media company, and then to meet people from all across the country, which was really eye-opening and cool to really network and become friends with a lot of the different people in the cohort that were all over the country. And it was just a really cool experience just to go outside of like my Arizona bubble. You learn so much with like your mentors and the certificates and speaker series, but you really just like the network that you have, like I'm still stay in touch with a lot of the people. And that's something that I still really value.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, the networking opportunities I personally think are one of the most valuable things that we offer through MADE and the AEF, so I'm glad that you both agree. Jay, what about you?
I off of that as well, but in a little different aspect. I know that Kevin talked about like the relationships that you get like through the other MADE interns, which is definitely true. Definitely have a lot of friends that I made through the program. But I think too, understanding the amount of influence that the ANA and the AEF have within marketing and advertising. I have a MADE mentee right now, and I was telling him, actually, I recently had the realization that actually I've switched jobs twice, and each time I didn't apply to the job, they were all a relationship that came because I was in the MADE program. And so I can actually say that I've never actually applied to a job that I've had post grad. It's been a relationship, but it's kind of crazy to say, but it just kind of shows the power of the agencies and the brands that are part of the ANA.
Yeah, well, that is great to hear, and absolutely true. You know, within the network here, we have a lot of recruiters that always come back to us looking for talent. So I'm so happy to hear that that worked out for you. Okay, so next up, so you know, we have a lot of first-time interns on this call. Some people who maybe are in their second or even third internship. And so, what do you wish that you knew during your first internship? Jordan, it was most recent for you, so I will start with you.
Yes. I think like don't put so much pressure on yourself because I remember how nervous I was, especially like the first day, and I know you are already past that, but I think just go with your gut and like trust your capabilities. You're here to learn and it's an internship. You're not expected to know everything, but also put like your own twist on things. Don't be afraid to like speak up or do something that you think is right from your experiences, whether it be other internships or classes, because that's why you're here is to put a unique perspective and to learn. So I think just, take advantage of like every opportunity they give and always raise your hand for more, but also don't be afraid to ask questions and know it's okay not to know everything because you're here to learn. And then also just really make sure you get to know the people on your team, but then also outside of your team, because sometimes you're stuck in like a bubble with like the discipline you're in, but there could be something else that really interests you and maybe another opportunity. Like when I was at NBC, somebody else I connected with provided like this opportunity to help out with one of their LinkedIn pages called Bold, where they showcased DE&I efforts and just things that are happening within ad sales at NBC. And they needed help with it. So I was able to help write like Instagram or LinkedIn copy and analytics stuff for it. So I think just like your work is the most important thing, your internship work, but also don't be afraid to meet people outside of your team because unexpected things can happen.
Yeah, well, thank you. That is great advice, definitely. And you have the unique experience, of having an internship during COVID and it was remote. Do you have any advice for navigating a remote internship and, forming those connections with your coworkers and other interns?
Yeah, I think I think all my internships have been remote except for one. And I think it's just kind of, they understand too that it's like they understand too that it's different on Zoom, but they're in the same position as you on the other side, and just remembering that they are a person, and maybe doing weekly coffee chats with your mentor or your manager, I think is really helpful, and just seeing like where they are and where you are in your career, and just finding things to connect with besides work is always nice, because you may build that connection besides work, and they may be like a mentor for you beyond your internships. So I think just like weekly coffee chats and just being as personable in yourself, because I think like, yes, it is an internship. If you are yourself, then you're going to be able to be more personable and genuine in your conversations that you have.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Kevin, any advice for, some of these first-time interns and, something they should think about doing during the summer?
I'd say keep kind of bouncing off what Jordan said, be open-minded. And I know that a lot of you all are very interested in the field of marketing and communications, and I think that's great. But I think also, when you look at, for example, an advertising agency, it's a company on its own. So there are so many different functions, job functions that support that company, whether it be recruiters, whether it be creatives, whether it be business development, new business, technology. There are so many different moving vehicles or moving gears that kind of help an agency kind of put work out into the world. And that could be a better fit for you. You never know what's a better fit for you until you kind of try it. So I'd say, kind of going off what Jordan said, be extremely open-minded and make sure that you're meeting as many different people as possible, even outside of your discipline and outside of marketing and communications.
Great. Thank you so much. And that was so nice to kind of give an overview, of some of those other roles there. And for you, like you said, you started at Math and Art with MADE, and now you've been working there a number of years. So do you have any advice for kind of forming those connections and any advice you'd give to try to get that return offer?
So for me, the way that I got my return offer was quite non-traditional. I didn't go through an interview process, and I got a call from HR one day saying someone who you spoke to during the summer really liked you and wants to offer you a job. And I'm like, who? Because I had spoken to a lot of people. But I was really lucky there. But I think to Jay's point about relationships, I think really nurture those relationships. And personally, I think I know this might contradict what I just said, but I think it's important for you to kind of spread your net wide and far and kind of get a feel for different disciplines, but also make sure that you're nurturing a stronger relationship with kind of a select few people that you think you really connect with, that are doing the role that you might want to do in 5 to 10 years, because I think there's more value in you having those strong relationships rather than kind of many surface level relationships.
Absolutely. That's great advice. And again, the power of networking, it really shows in those situations. So that's great. Jay, same question for you. Any advice that you would give, to students in internships?
Yes, I think the number one piece of advice
I think he's having some internet issues, unfortunately. Give him a
to
second.
not be of the mindset that they're doing you a favor. Like, yes, they are. Hello? Am I coming through?
You're coming through a bit better now. Yes.
Okay. I also am from California, so we talk fast. But I was saying that this is a mindset that the company is doing you a favor. I think when you think like that, it's sometimes harder to raise your hand or harder to kind of take initiative or ask for additional things. Yes, you are there to learn, but you're also there to be of value to the people who are doing the day-to-day work. So not just to wait on them to say something, but to be proactive, which I think was mentioned before, but I think that's so important, especially now being on the other side and having interns, knowing that like to have an intern is a lot of work. And so just from the back end, so the more you can be helpful, the more that it goes such a long way and can build the relationship with whoever you're working with.
That is great advice. So thank you for that. And Jay, a follow-up question for you. You started on a different path and now you are in social strategy. Do you think that you learned from every position you had and it helped you get to where you are today? What are your thoughts about kind of exploring those different opportunities?
Oh, this is my favorite topic because I have had every job under the sun, let me tell you, and I continue to.
Right when right when we were getting
reason why my Wi-Fi should weak with other type. Oh, sorry, I'm not sure why I cut out, but am I coming through again?
Yes, you are.
Okay, but no, to that point, I even continue to kind of not have a linear career path. I'm in Paris right now for Paris Fashion Week, doing a whole nother line of work that I do outside of my day-to-day in social strategy in like an agency. But I do think wholeheartedly that every role, every experience that you have can be leveraged, and there are transferable skills within everything. And I'm still in agency work today. That's my day-to-day as a social strategist. But that came about because I started blogging back before I even knew that could be a career. And all the things that I learned from that, and being on like the other side as a creator or influencer, understand, but then also having a business degree and tying those two things together is the reason why I've been successful in the role that I do today. So I think definitely don't downplay any roles that you've had. I actually, to this day, believe that the role that made them biggest, like advantage in my life was when I was a receptionist at Van Cleef and Arpels on Fifth Avenue, helping sales associates sell $1 million brooches, because it taught me so much about relationship building and like client services. And so I think that's like, but I relate it to that job. So totally unrelated, but it helps me today.
That is incredible. So thank you so much for sharing all of that, and also thank you for joining us from Paris. That is very nice of you. So we really appreciate that. So I'm going to open it up to all of you, and you can feel free to ask a question of all the panelists. If there's someone that you want to ask a specific question, feel free. So if anyone would like to either put something in the chat or come off mute, now is the time.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Sure.
This is, I think, to Jay and Jordan. I think you guys specifically mentioned how you still have such a great relationship with your mentors. And I was just wondering how you guys specifically used your meetings with them to foster this relationship, whether it was like more so getting to know each other on a personal basis, or were there things you did like maybe CV workshopping, or just what did you guys do to really make the most out of that time and kind of foster those relationships?
Yeah, I guess I can go first. I think with my mentor, first, it was more like kind of just getting to know each other for our first one, and kind of like her helping me through my internship at the time. And then also I was wondering more about her position. And then as it progressed, like I got more and more curious about what she did. So I would ask, maybe because she was in strategy, so her to walk me through like her process for maybe a client, and she would show me like the basics of strategy because it really interests me. So like what the 4 C's were. And I think then I would make it follow up at the end, or like be like, thank you so much, even beyond the internship, and make it a point to discuss something else. So something else maybe I was interested in was like how to do like research, or how to craft my portfolio in a way that can make me stand out for a strategy internship or job. So and also just kind of like keeping in touch throughout the internship and letting her know like, oh, I hit this milestone, or even beyond that I'm applying for internships right now, or even seeing what she was doing in her agency and taking note of that. So I think just like going both ways. And I think the last thing was, yeah, with the going both ways, I even asked if she like wanted to come into our club and speak, which she did. So I think just as much like letting them know that like you can be a resource to them and help them, but just making it a point to like keep in touch and have a purpose for each meeting, because sometimes you can just go on tangents, which is nice, but they're there also to help.
Thank you.
And I'd add that, so 2 parts. So with my mentor that I had when I was in the program, I think we were really a great match because I was really intentional with who I wanted. I actually told Sarah Parrish, who used to work at the AEF, that I really wanted someone who like worked in like tech, was like kind of like who was like worked in like the tech field, and or did something that was really related to like innovation. So, and she had someone perfect, and so my mentor worked as an account, like in account at Pinterest. And so just from that, we had a lot of similar interest. So I think that was one of the reasons why we really hit it off from the beginning. But I know that's not always the case, but I think if you are trying to kind of create a strong mentor-mentee relationship in any type of situation, I think it's important to kind of set goals. So actually something I'm doing right now with my mentee, who's great, is we did like a job description. So like I made a job description of what I'd want a great mentee to be, and he made a job description of what he'd want a great mentor to be. And that really helped us figure out what we really want to get out of the relationship. And we've had a great meeting so far. We meet weekly, but that's just because we're both like, we like we like the kind of consistency. But I know other people who had a lot of success with their mentors who met like once a month or only 3 times throughout the internship program. So just depends on your style.
Awesome, thank you. I will ask a question that I received in the chat. So it's kind of a two-part question here. So how do you make the most of a role or experience if it's not what you imagined it to be, or if you feel pulled in a different direction? I think this is a great question, definitely relevant, you know, as you're beginning your career and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. So Kevin, Jay, Jordan, I don't know if any of you want to start answering that one.
I can answer that one because...
Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Okay, sorry. I'll be quick. Kind of going back to this point I mentioned about I've worked like every job under the sun, it seems. I actually started my career path in finance. Who would have thought? But I was really like dead set on going on the finance track. And I did it all the way up until my sophomore year, and I had a bunch of internships. I was also someone who like always kind of had a job. So I did like small financial services firms in New York. I did like a Morgan Stanley internship, and then I did a big one in Shanghai where I did like the whole summer. So I was really getting a taste of what it was like working in. I was in mergers and acquisitions at the time, and I realized that this is only 3 months. So I want to do this every single day of my life. And then the pivot, I will say that it's not easy. Like I will be honest and say that like, especially when you have a set path, that can be hard, but I'm so grateful that I did, because I found like such the kind of little crevice for me to live in that I love what I do every day. And so I think it's kind of, you kind of just have to push through a little bit of that fear when it comes to that. And I think it's so much about trial and error. I think we learn the most, not from like the wins, but failures. And so then if we've signed a contract to be at a place for years, so I think this is your time to really kind of test the water, so to speak.
Awesome, thank you. Kevin, did you want to add to that?
Sure, I'd say to start off with, try to find opportunities that are within kind of your position or even within your team or company, because I feel like those are usually the most accessible, and it gives you kind of a trial period for a role that you may be interested in. In turn, it's likely that there will definitely be at least someone doing a role that kind of mirrors what you're interested in. So start kind of close to you. I'd say your skills are always transferable, as a lot of my fellow panelists have said. So when it's time to make that, or when you feel like you're ready to kind of make that big jump, whether that be leaving your team or your company and jumping into a new role, I'd say kind of gather up what you've learned from your current role and kind of make sure that you're packaging it up in a way that is applicable to your new role, and it'll always be applicable.
Yeah, one thing I will add, because I was in these shoes not too long ago, when I was deciding what I wanted to do when I graduated, and I thought, maybe I could continue like doing ad sales, because I really loved NBC and everyone was so nice and I learned a lot. But I think I realized that I just really had this, I really still wanted to pursue and go into the advertising industry, and I didn't have any experience in it, and I knew that an internship is the best way. So I really, in my current role when I was at NBC, I would still like network with people within the company, and then also in agency life, just to kind of compare it to see, like what I wanted to do. Then through that internship, I kind of realized I still really want to learn advertising and strategy. So like they were saying, the panelists, just kind of see like what you're learning now and how it's applicable. But if you don't have something that's a skill set that you don't have, maybe take like a class or do a certification or watch YouTube videos, because that will show that you care. And even if like in your interview and your career pivot, you can say that, I haven't had like this direct experience, but I have done this and then this, and I have learned and talked to people that are in it, so I know it's the right career path for me. So yeah, I think just like show and take the initiative, maybe doing like a certification or mentoring and shadowing somebody, and that can be your way of experience.
Awesome. Well, thank you three for those answers. Next question that Valerie put in the chat. So what are some of the biggest successes and failures you faced in your career, and what lessons did you take away from them? Great question. Who would like to start with that one?
I can start.
Great.
So what should we start with, positive or negative?
You can go for it, whichever you feel. Maybe the negative, and then we'll move positive.
Okay. So this is like a life lesson, I think, actually. Yay, fun virtual class. And so when I graduated, and like I mentioned, I've kind of always had a job, and so I've been kind of working in the social space since forever. And I was kind of permalancing at this really boutique agency called Plural, which I'm so grateful for. I literally like skyrocketed my career because of everything I was able to do there. But it was never a place I wanted to be at full time, because I was working there kind of permalanced. So like 40 hours a week, but on my own time in between classes and things like that. My boss really wanted me to be full time. I was like, I always had a plan to go to like a big agency. I like, I'm thinking I'm gonna come back from this great school. I'm gonna like go into like a big corporate place, not this place of like 10 people. So then COVID hits, and I'd done all the prep. I worked really hard, and there was nothing available. And I'm always like sensitive to the fact that this was actually on paper a huge blessing that I had something already lined up. But to me, it was like a big failure because I had these plans to go to this really big agency or do something like big in the corporate world. And I did everything right. It's just that the timing and the outside sources didn't align. I think that's like a really important life lesson. So where like, not even if you do everything right, sometimes it just doesn't work out because of timing, because of something else, whatever. And it's not her Beyonce, because you love Beyonce reference, say the same thing. How like one of her biggest lessons was when she didn't win Girls Time. I think that was a group she was in back in the day, or Star Search. She realized that they had literally rehearsed. They'd done everything right. It's just they didn't win, and she realized that I can do everything right and may not get the award and not get like the praise that I want. It doesn't mean I did what I did isn't right, So I think that was something that was like it was a failure at the time, but it was a huge life lesson, and I learned so much from it. In terms of biggest career success, I'd say, actually, I think I'd say from project-wise, I worked on, I don't know if anyone's a soccer fan, but Angel City Football Club in New York. I did the entire launch, was like the solo strategist on that social launch for them. And it was the nationally trending Twitter hashtag, and it was like just a really, really big project for me. I think that was my biggest career success thus far. And it was an industry that I didn't know a lot about sports. Like behind the scenes, I hadn't worked on anything like on the sports side. And it kind of taught me about like the back end research has to go into really understanding industry for something to be a success. So those are my two.
Well, that's an incredible success. So congratulations on that. And, seeing something tangible that you worked so hard on come to life, that's really amazing. So thank you for sharing that. And, with what you shared as the quote failure, it's a tough time right now. A lot of people that kind of have these big dreams, and you may realize that it'll take a couple more steps to get there. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like Jay said, he was able to learn so much. So some of those failures end up turning into a positive, and they're not actually a failure after all. So thank you, Jay, for sharing all of that. Kevin, I will put it over to you next.
Wow. I'd say I'll start with the negative as well. I'm fairly new to my new role, which is kind of a product manager or a product developer. It's still confusing to this day, but within my first month of working in the job, I was asked to go to Vegas to pitch to MGM Hospitality regarding our solution. So I kind of prepared this beautiful deck together. And when I was doing my pitch, I messed up and omitted one of the technical details of my product. And I could see my manager like clench a bit. The people in the room I don't know if they understood what was going on or if they understood what the mistake that I had made was. It was very obvious to anyone who was very technical. So I think that was one of my recent biggest failures because we didn't get that pitch and it was a multi-million-dollar contract. I will say that my manager was just really understanding and she's like, you're new, there will be so many other pitches, take this as a lesson. So the lesson I learned from that is you'll make mistakes. And you'll never know when you'll make them, but as long as you're not making, or at least trying not to make that same mistake, you're doing something right, and don't let that mistake kind of hinder you in moving forward. I'd say one of the biggest successes that I had recently is my main client for my product is White Castle, and they really utilize our AI drive-through solution. And as a product manager, it's really rewarding when they come to you and say, we have 2 stores now. We really like this. We would like 12 more. And we want you to be written into the contract where you will remain on as the product manager for the next 12 months. So I think to be given kind of a large business deal and be named as kind of one of the notable figures in driving that contract forward is extremely rewarding.
That's great. Thank you. Well, the success is very exciting, and I really appreciate you sharing, the mistake that happened as well. It's important to realize that those things sometimes do happen.
They do.
It's not the end of the world, it all works out. Like you said, it was a learning experience, and now you know. So thank you very much for sharing that. And Jordan, speaking of, end of the world, right? Sometimes interns think if they make a mistake or something goes wrong, that it could be the end of the world. So is there anything that happened that, you maybe messed up or something didn't go your way, but then you were able to use it as a learning opportunity?
Yeah, I think probably with my most past internship at NBCU, I was in ad operations, and it was something that I never done before. And it wasn't something that I realized I was not passionate about, but I really liked my team and they were really helpful. But I remember my second week, and it's a really technical role. I accidentally messed up something in one of the trafficking processes, and I was just really open and honest, and they were they could tell that I was still learning and things, but it was super detailed, and they weren't, and it was okay. But there's times that everybody messed up, and even later on in my internship. So I think just being open when you don't know how to do something. But I think through that, and I think when I was thinking my biggest failure, I think through that, I remember it was coming up on graduation. I was I feel I know I have an offer there. It's I don't know what to do. And I felt a lot of pressure that I had to know exactly what I wanted to do, but I felt it wasn't really what I was passionate about. So I spoke to my mentor about it, and I think it ended up being a good learning experience to know that, that's not something I would want to do. But then I get to say the success side is that I had that experience, and it is applicable to what I do now. And just it was a learning experience, and I just took a lot from it. So I think, even if something's not exactly what aligns that you want to do, you can still learn a lot from it. And it was really great. But I think just don't put so much pressure on yourself, because it'll work out in the end. Because you think when you graduate, you have to know exactly what you want to do, but you don't.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing all of that. I'm glad that your mentor was able to kind of help you and walk you through that decision. And, all of those experiences kind of lead to the next step. So that is great. All right, so I'm getting some more questions in the chat. So the next one, this one is more for Kevin and Jay. So when transitioning from an internship to a full-time job, did you ever doubt that you could do the job or have imposter syndrome? So I know that's something personally that, sometimes you feel oh my gosh, did I get into something that's a little too big for me? Kevin, do you want to speak to that first?
To this day, every single day. I am working in a role where I'm interacting with a lot of developers who are very smart. I'm working with a lot of lawyers to figure out data privacy, and they're all coming to me asking for direction because I'm the product manager and I determine the roadmap of the product. And that can be intimidating because I'm 3 years out of college. I am considered to be more junior when it comes to my organization and when it comes to my career, yet having lawyers and engineers who have more than 10 years of experience come to you and say, what would product like to do? Like, how do you see the product evolving? What are your needs? Can be intimidating. I think something that I always tell myself is it's not rocket science. And I think as long as you have an open mind to at least learn, and when I say learn, I don't think anyone expects me to be a developer or a lawyer, but at least, making a very conscious and very active effort to kind of learn their lingo and learn their processes, I think has helped me in terms of my confidence and has kind of helped me to develop a lot of great working relationships.
Great. Well, that is excellent advice. So thank you for that. Jay, would you like to answer the same question? Might be.
I was trying to find that. Yeah, I was trying to find the mute button. Well, no. So completely agree. Imposter syndrome is 100% real. And it doesn't actually matter what, and I think that's actually something that's kind of sobering. The fact that really anyone you speak to, no matter the level that they are, has this feeling of imposter syndrome sometimes. But something else I recently heard that was such a great piece of advice is that no one knows you have imposter syndrome. No one knows you're an imposter if they don't know you, or if you're in the room. Like if you're in the room, everyone assumes you know what you're doing. Only you have that thinking. That's also something that I always try to remember, because if I'm there for a reason. And so there's no need to kind of prove myself or prove it to others, because in that process, sometimes it makes it seem like you're not supposed to be there. So just really kind of like faking it till you make it, to be honest, is really like the truest saying I've ever heard in my life, because you always kind of end up reaching the potential or getting the job done in the end, even when you do that. So it's kind of this idea of if you smile enough, you become happy. It's very much the same when it comes to imposter syndrome.
Yes, well, that is such a great way of looking at it. I completely agree. Sometimes you have to remember that the people that you're networking with or you interviewed with, they chose you. So they fully believe that you can do this job. So all you have to do is then believe in yourself and put your best foot forward. So thank you both for answering that. Before I move on to the next question in the chat, I wanted to see if anybody wanted to come off mute to ask their question. Okay, I will move on to the next question in the chat then. So Kimberly says that she actually has an interview tomorrow for a strategy intern position for an ad agency. So Jordan, do you have any tips, for her tomorrow, or anything she should know to be prepared?
I would say first, come with a lot of questions, because usually at the end, I think that's any interview, but especially for strategy, they want to make sure that you're really curious and excited about the position. Obviously do a lot of research on the agency, but also what's happening in advertising, because probably one of the questions they're going to ask you is what do you see happening right now and what do you think about it, or what do you think is a really great campaign? And then maybe I've gone asked a few times, what's something that you don't like or something that you don't think brands should do. So just knowing what you like and don't like and having opinions, I think is important. And then I would say, yeah, for the questions, maybe asking about how their department works, for strategy, because every agency is different, asking about the role, maybe how to find good insights, because every agency is different with that too, but I think like just being yourself and coming prepared with like things happening in the industry, and you'll nail it.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And Kimberly, I hope that helps you. Good luck at your interview tomorrow. Okay, so next question. So for those that work with external audiences, what have been some unique challenges you have experienced when trying to engage with customers? And on the other side, successful strategies that have worked when engaging with customers. So Kevin, would you like to go with that one first?
Yeah, customers can be interesting. I feel like I'm going to try to answer both questions in one way. And for me, something that's worked really good is transparency. I know it's always a balance between you want to make sure that whatever you're pitching and your product is essentially the shiny new toy, because that's how you sign the deal. But kind of to me, what's more important is the relationship that comes after. So once you've signed the scope of work and once you guys are partners, then I feel like that sense of transparency has helped me in terms of nurturing relationships and helping grow the business. And I think from my working experience, I am more comfortable sharing like risks and certain obstacles that we may have. And knowing that that can make my team look bad, I think at the same time, when you share the obstacles and risks with your client and you kind of engage them in the process, I think they are appreciative of you sharing that information and are more willing to work with you to kind of solve different problems that may arise throughout the relationship. So I'd say almost an extreme sense of transparency is how I like to navigate my relationships.
That is great. Thank you. Jay, would you like to answer the same question?
Yeah, I can definitely jump in. I think when it comes to any sort of like client relationship, I think it always has to be rooted in value. And the way you get to that value is very much dependent on the personality of who you're engaging with. But because it's coming from like an agency side, like our clients are our customers, right? And sometimes clients don't know what they don't know. And so there's sometimes education that goes into it. There's sometimes selling in ideas that they maybe are afraid of. But that's why it's so important to have those kind of underlying relationships built and trust built, because when those things do come up, it's not so much of a hard sell. It can be rooted in references that make sense to them, or kind of impact that you know they're thinking about. Another thing that I had an account person at an agency I worked at said is like, always think of what can you do to make them look good. And anything that can do that is a win for you, because they're going to know that you're kind of the reason that got them there, and they're going to want to keep you close. So that comes from if I'm doing styling or if I'm talking to a client in the agency. It's like, okay, how do I make you look the best? And with your boss, with where you're going. So I think that kind of mindset is always really important when you're working with like an external source.
Awesome.
All about them first, customer first, as I said.
Thank you. That is great. We have time for maybe one or two more questions. Anybody want to come off mute and ask their question?
I will, yeah. Hi, yeah. First, thanks you guys so much for sharing all of your expertise. I have sort of like, I don't know, this might be like a hokey or a cheesy question, which is why I kind of held off until the end, but it's just not that often that you get other people that are like so young in the space and like get their perspective on things. So I was just curious, like, what is something that each of you are excited about right now? Like whether that be in like your respective industries or like your career next steps, like anything of the sort. I'm just really curious.
That's a great question. So thank you, Mallory.
Not cheesy at all. That is absolutely nothing cheesy about that question. I love that. It actually is really making me think. Someone else feel free to jump in.
Yeah, sorry to put you guys on the spot like that.
Kevin, Jordan, either be ready or thinking?
I mean, I can go first. I think it's just limitless opportunities. Me personally, I moved from 2 years in a marketing role to a product role that still touches upon marketing, but is much more technical than my previous role. And part of that is because I feel like there's a more of an openness in the generation of managers, or the current generation of managers compared to the previous generation of managers, in hiring from outside of the traditional path. So rather than kind of looking to another product manager to backfill the role, they were willing to take a chance on me, who had 2 years in marketing and open and willingness to learn and kind of see how I do. And they were like, you're doing amazing. So I think when I connect with other colleagues, and whether it be coworkers, friends, or people I've met professionally, I think that's something that they're seeing as well, which is an openness from different companies to let whether their employees or talent kind of come from different backgrounds. And I think that's how you drive innovation. So I think I'm excited to see what's next for me. And I don't know what's next, but I'm excited that there are so many different possibilities in terms of career paths that I could go on.
Jordan, would you like to go next?
Yeah, no, that is a great question. I think for me, I'm like just starting like post-grad life, so it's scary, but I think I'm just excited to finally I don't know, I'm just at a place where I feel like I'm learning so much. And I look up to like everyone I'm around, and I'm like at my dream like internship agency. So I'm just like trying to absorb it all. And I think in the industry, it's just like it's really exciting how people are really trying to find like unique ways to connect with consumers outside of the box ideas, especially at Droga. So I think the department I'm in is really exciting in that way, because it's all about like how and where to reach consumers. So I'm just like really excited to learn. And I think it's great that they want to hear kind of like what Kevin was saying, like different perspectives. Like I feel like my voice is heard, and I know all the other interns feel that way. So it's just exciting. I think that's for all of advertising though.
Awesome. And Jay, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you for giving me some time. But I'm actually super excited for background, or I think it's not background, I already said it. I work within the strategy department, so I am a strategist, but I specialize in social media. And I'm just super excited actually for what's happening within the social space for brands, because I think brands are really starting to understand that it's not the future, it's here. And I always give this kind of analogy to clients, but when you have the invention of the newspaper, print ads were made. When you had the invention of radio ads had to be made. When people started driving good out of home. We're in this new kind of world where we're on our phones 24/7, and there's so many opportunities for us to access people in such creative ways, in ways that like we could never do before. And I got it. And the agency a lot of times is scared about that. And it's the only type of deliverable where people can talk to you. But in the same way, the level of trust and action and engagement and like response you can get from it is more than you could ever do in the past. So I'm really excited for kind of that kind of pivot. And I think more and more agencies understanding and businesses understanding that it's not just important, but sometimes like the most important aspect of your marketing mix, because it's going to touch really the most amount of people, and it can be the most transformative for the business.
Thank you. Okay, so we did have one last. Oh, Mallory, did you have a?
No, I was just gonna say thank you. Those were all awesome answers.
Awesome. Well, thank you for asking your question. So we have about 1 minute left. So I'm going to ask you really quickly to kind of just give one line in response to Delon's question. So he said, looking back on starting at your job, what advice would you give yourself thinking back to the very beginning? So just something really quick. Jordan, would you like to start?
I think first, just like get to know the role really well and the company, and then the people around you, and just like, yeah, really just absorb everything and ask a lot of questions.
Awesome. Kevin?
It's okay not to know. It's really okay not to know what you want to do, if you want to be at that company, where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years. I always, when I'm asked that question, I always respond, I don't even know what I'm doing for dinner. And that's oftentimes true. So it's okay not to know.
That is a great answer. I love it. And Jay, what about you?
It's kind of going off of Kevin's, but it's okay to ask for help. And that's not even in the case if you don't know something, just based on bandwidth, based on who has availability. I think, and I'm still working on that, feeling like it's like bad to ask for help. Like I can do it myself, wouldn't I? But delegation is so important, especially as you move up. You have to learn how to do it. And so kind of giving away a bit of that control, but knowing that other people can be capable in getting things done, and actually everything ends up being a lot better when there are multiple brains working on something. So that would be my piece of advice. Ask for help.
Well, that is a great lesson, and I think that's kind of the perfect way to end it with those 3 answers. So thank you, Kevin, Jordan, Jay, so much for all of your insights and being willing to share, those failures and successes. I really appreciate, you taking the time to join us tonight. And to everybody that was able to join this evening, we have some more amazing webinars coming up throughout the summer with people from Nike and McCann, and toward the end of the summer, one where you can meet the recruiters and ask your open questions. So definitely keep an eye out for those things. And as always, if you have any questions about MADE or things throughout the summer, feel free to email either myself or Amy, and we will get back to you. But again, thank you, Kevin, Jordan, and Jay, and I hope you all have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.